Remember this antler? This was the tine that was trimmed off by Dr. Asa Kelly, Doc Kelly down in Addison, Michigan. He caught this buck and another buck of equal size with their antlers locked, and they were that way all day long. He was able to free them. What a story we had. That was 3 years ago. A lot of people have asked us to repeat that story, so we're going to bring that your way in just a moment. We're also going to have a late season duck story and a great recipe. Oh, a few more things too. So you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. We have one of the most incredible coincidences and stories right now that I think I've ever heard in the outdoors. Dr. Asa Kelly from Addison. 27 years ago, you did something with a couple of bucks whose antlers were locked. What'd you do?
Released them and let them run again. Sawed
their antlers off. Very few vets, I'd say, have ever had the experience of doing anything like that. Wouldn't you think?
You know, I have no way of judging it.
Do you have any pictures of that?
No, I do not.
Now, the other night, Marlene Kelly, what happened?
We got a phone call from the sheriff's department. 2 bucks had their horns caught together, and Bruce wanted us to come help.
Okay, Marlene grabbed the video camera, the home video, and this is what she took as her husband, Doc Kelly, had the rope in his hand, and the first thing he did is fling it over their antlers.
Oh. And as you see, we had kind of a lucky grab there. We got what we wanted right off. I wanted just the one deer, so if we did get them apart, we didn't have 2 of them still fastened together and fighting both of them.
You mean that rope is just over one of the antlers of
yes.
one of the deer?
Mm-hmm. It's on the one towards you. And as we got the rope settled on their horns, we put some pressure on it to turn their necks at an angle so that they would not have the ability to charge straight forward as we were working with them.
Looks like a pretty cautious group of people there.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm scared to death of them because they'll kill you.
Well, the tines on that one buck look to be 8 or 10 inches long.
I think they're fully that long and perhaps longer.
Are you going with the bolt cutters?
Yeah. Now, what I did was take the tip of that one tine off, hoping that as I took that tip off, I could use that as a lever and pry those 2 racks apart. So you'll see that tip go, and I think you'll see here in a moment where I tried to use it as a pry bar, and it just wasn't going to work. And you'll see I tried it a little bit there and just gave up and started with the vice grips that you will see here in a moment that I used to make a groove in that horn.
Now you mean the bolt cutters were too...
the bolt cutters were too small to cut back at the base, or towards the base where we had to release it.
Now how big are those bucks? I mean, points, they're about what?
I think they're 10 and 12 points. I think you'll count those later. And they were rather large bucks. I'm going to judge them at roughly 220 and 280 live weight.
280 pounds for that biggest?
I believe so.
Well, Marlene, you're a hunter. So is Doc. This must have been exciting to you to see this.
Exciting, very much so.
You're holding the camera real steady there. You were a distance away.
I was in the car to start with, and then I just decided I had to get closer, and I got out. And I've got the old-fashioned camera where I have to carry the recorder. This is not a camcorder.
Carrying the recorder with you.
Right.
Boy, look at that bundle of tines. And what are you looking for? What are you doing right there?
That's where I'm notching the tine. As I told you, I was notching it so I could get the bolt cutter over it.
And you say there's one of them there that...
There's one in both situations that I have been into with this, that the one tine will release it if you find the right one.
Now that's the landowner there who has the farm?
That is the landowner that owns the farm.
Oh, and there's Bruce.
Then there's Bruce.
Bruce Van Weren, the conservation officer. Now he's running back up there.
He's playing quarter horse. He's the one that's sitting on the rope. And as he said, this is yours, go do it.
Now, how long were these bucks, how long have they been locked up?
The landowner saw them at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And what time is it now?
And this is roughly 5:30, 5:45 in the evening. And they called the conservation officer later on in the day seeking help, and this is the result of it.
Now, these deer would have died.
Oh, yes.
If they...
Yes.
How long would it have taken them to die?
I don't think that's an answerable question exactly due to the weather and so many different factors. If they could get where there was water, I'm sure they would drink and eat and so on. However, they really do attempt to mutilate each other. There you'll see where...
Yeah, you just got that tine, didn't you,
I did take that tine on off.
Oh, now this is got to be a tense moment.
This is a very tense moment. You see them release a little. You see them start to charge each other again. As they did this, I took the rope off. You see I reached over and released the quick release on the Honda.
Oh, yeah, right there.
It goes. All right, now I'm going to run around real quick on the other side to check to see if there's any further damage to them that needs attention, and where I didn't believe there was. And checked them there to be sure their eyes and everything was okay. And
now why are they standing so still?
They still think they're locked in combat.
And of course, after 10 or 12 hours, or who knows how many hours, they have given up.
And I just told the fellas there to just get back. And I think if just a little movement, I think they'll release themselves. Hear those horns clicking.
Man, and that is drama.
The one that is leaving, in this case, is considered the loser, and I'll show you the winner. Right there he is. There goes Twinkle Toes. And he really is quite belligerent at this moment. He thinks he has beat the other deer, and he's ready to beat anything else he comes to. And you'll see the tine that we cut off, so we didn't take very much of it off.
Well, you can see that. Magnificent. Maybe foot-long tines there. And that's down in Addison, Lenawee County. Look at that. And he's watching you folks.
Oh, yes. Yes, shame on anyone that goes near him.
But he wasn't going to charge from that distance. Any closer, though, he might?
Oh, I started up towards him at one time, and all he did was just drop his head and point those tines at you.
And that's all you need?
No, that's all I need.
Now, when he turned around, and I think he did turn over and glance at Marlene there with the camera.
Right. Bruce told me that if he charged, just to leave it on.
Yeah, leave the camera going.
Right.
He didn't just bound off right then.
No, we to be sure that he was capable of moving out into life, we took the car and drove up to him slowly and blew the horn, and he turned and left as the other one did then.
So he wasn't hurt? He was
no.
Just belligerent?
It
Yes.
was fine.
Man, I tell you, I don't know what it does for the folks at home, but that tape got my heart pounding.
It was exciting.
Marlene, you did a tremendous job on that home video. Doc, you got more stories for Michigan Outdoors. There's more things that these people have done that we're going to have on. Oh, that's a thrill. Here's the set of antlers from the buck that had the tine cut off. It met an unfortunate demise on the highway. A truck hit it, broke its skull, and that's what happened to this one. The other one was taken by a hunter. And of course, we do have hunters who have big bucks, and we're going to put in some big fish here too in our trophy book. Last year, bow hunter Ken Sharp from Hamburg took this 14-point buck with a 23-inch spread a week before gun season in Washtenaw County. In the same county, Scott Holloway from Ypsilanti took this 10-point with a 23-inch spread at noon on the last day of the gun season, November 30th. Tom Hubbard from Goodell's took this 10-point from Missaukee County, a nice typical rack. And here's what a Kansas whitetail looks like. Ken Kaiser took this big 9-pointer in Cloud County, watches us on the PBS station out there. On November 10th, Martin Alden from Mount Clemens caught this walleye from Lake St. Clair, casting a bomber. The fish was 29 inches long, weighed well over 10 pounds. Fishing Manistee Lake on November 26th, John Matonic Jr. from Davison caught a 39-inch steelhead trolling a Hottentot. That one weighed nearly 22 pounds. And on the last day of gun deer season, Dave Rose from Traverse City caught a 15-inch Menominee whitefish in West Bay just at sunset. From the same school, his buddy Todd McCall hauled out this 16 3/4 incher. Earlier in the season, in fact August 8th, 8-year-old Derek Doutwaith from Muskegon was trolling a spinnerbait and crawler. A long-nosed gar hit it, giving Derek quite a tale to tell. Did you net this fish or what?
Yeah, we netted it.
Did you?
Yeah.
And you battled it all by yourself?
Yeah.
What'd you use for bait?
A worm and a crawler and a spinnerbait.
A crawler on a spinnerbait?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Did it fight a lot?
Yeah.
Now, when you got it netted, did you want to pick it up right away?
No.
Was it snapping those teeth at all? Did it close its mouth and open it?
Yeah.
It's kind of spooky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had that mounted. That's a beautiful job, a great fish, and one you can really be proud of. Congratulations, Derek. Duck season opened in early October, and it looks like the first week, mild temperatures, bluebird skies, but this is the end of the 1990 waterfowl season. This likely duck marsh is the famous Muskong Bay, a shallow body of water within eyeshot of Canada off the St. Mary's River. Normally attracts thousands of migrating ducks the first week of November, but not this year. We set out the decoys with all the anticipation of opening day, which was like this day in every respect. We're closing the season with veteran duck hunter Gene Ruckus and his buddy Dave, who were looking for a banner close to a relatively quiet season. The problem has been the weather. Too nice of weather to move the ducks south, or at least not windy enough to cause them to congregate in the marshes they usually used to duck the Arctic blasts in a normal season. I was in a boat with Harry Reinfelder, a shooting expert and president of our Outdoors Foundation. Harry has good eyes and spotted that flock we've waited for so long. Well, they're starting to move. A little bit of activity. 4 ducks look like a big flock, at least this season. We let them pass in favor of a flock that we hoped would fly closer to our decoys, like this bunch of ducks coming our way. Yep. Still coming. Take them? No, they're on the outside. Eight ducks. They passed along the outer edge of our decoys, and I think both of us had half a mind to shoot, but neither of us did. A decision that I had to question immediately. Think we should have?
The time of day, yeah. I think we should have.
We're probably got a half hour left.
We'd have been stretching it just a little bit, but
they looked like they were on maybe 5-10 yards on the outer edge of the decoys.
that would have put it at about 40 yards.
Why didn't you shoot?
I wanted to give you the first shot.
I gotta wait for the elder. Just out of respect.
I appreciate that, but the experience that I've had, I wanted to give you first shot.
I only have 2 shots. You have 3. I wanted you to take the first one, and we'd be comparable.
I just wanted either one of you to shoot.
Yeah, I know it. You know, it's one of those things you just, should I? Yes, I will. No, I won't. Finger on the safety. If you would have shot, it would have tripped me loose, but...
I think if I would have shot and missed, you would have laughed.
No, I would have shot
Would you
twice,
have shot?
and then I would have laughed.
Okay.
Well, this was the close of duck season 1990, full of jokes, stories, and sometimes just idle chatter in the duck blind. The ducks remained on the horizon despite our constant but unfulfilled anticipation. Over here, Harry. Harry. Right over here. Well, this past duck season, really anywhere in the country, wasn't what duck hunters had hoped, but it was a good one for those of us who like to get out in the marsh, pitch the decoys, and just be out there in the beautiful sunsets. You know, a lot of people don't hunt ducks because they say duck is about as palatable as the decoys. Whoa, Kathy Beitler is going to prove them wrong.
We received a wild duck with currant jelly recipe from Mitchell Meyer. And it's got a lot of different steps, but each one is important in this recipe. There's a duck.
Yeah, that is a wild duck that, and plucking takes
R-
so long, but you know, when you cook a duck that's been plucked, the fat and the juice really makes the meat taste better.
It sure does.
This is one case where fat on wild game is beneficial with ducks.
Okay, but we're going to remove it here. We're going to put it on the grill, and that's what this putting it on the grill will do.
Well, it removes it, yes, but it also sort of bastes the meat as it cooks it in that fat.
Exactly, inside.
And it's very tasty.
The meat inside will stay moist. Then you're going to make a marinade out of the currant jelly and sherry. And you just want this to come to a boil, and then you're going to go ahead and put the duck whole in there. You're not going to cut it up or anything. Add a little bit of garlic powder.
Now, currant jelly, could you use a grape jelly?
You could, but the currant jelly,
jam or something?
It has, it's a different kind of berry, and it's a little bit sweeter than like a grape or a raspberry would be.
And you just boil that in there to,
Yep,
to cook it, or?
To finish cooking it, and then that will keep it moist. If you went ahead and cooked the whole thing on the grill, it would dry out or in the oven. And then once that's done, then you're going to skin it, and then just cut it into bite-sized pieces.
So that fat in the skin comes off.
Exactly.
Into bite-sized pieces, into that, is that
into the marinade, right, that's some more of the marinade.
You know, a recipe like this is kind of interesting. Duck is hard to cook in a restaurant. I know John McKenzie from Coyle's Restaurant in Houghton Lake says duck is one of the toughest thing, almost literally toughest to put on a menu. So I'm kind of interested to hear what our celebrity chef says about this. Is it tough or is it tasty?
I like the sweetness to it that brings out the duck flavor. Pretty much I get a bad review to most all duck, but this is good. I mentioned earlier to you that about a duck I had before, the raisin sauce on it was very good. One of the few that I really enjoyed. That was nice and sweet. This has got a sweet texture to it. Really presented nicely. Looks real appetizing when it comes to you. It's not as a main course, but as an appetizer, it's very good.
Oh, you see, he'd never want to sit down and have a meal out of this.
A big plateful, but a little bowlful is okay.
Can you taste that it was on the grill? You know, since Kath mentioned that, that makes it taste better knowing it was on the grill.
Does. It does. And all the work's taken out of it. There's nice little pieces. Makes it nice and petite for you.
Yeah, you don't have to wrestle with it on your plate. But it is tasty. You know, the more you eat.
It's sweet and sour. It's like a sweet and sour, but it's not thick sweet and sour.
If you went to the supermarket and they had one of these on a toothpick and said, would you like to try one? They'd never sell a bit of it.
That's right.
Don't you think, John?
It grows on you.
You need to take that second bite.
Yep.
Yeah, about fifth bite, I think. But it is really good. I know I said you had to acquire a taste for duck, but really, you'll love it after a few bites. Well, if you eat a lot of duck, you'll love it right off the bat. If you're hesitant, try it with chicken. Just 2 weeks, we're going to have a recap on our hunting seasons here in Michigan, find out how good were they. But right now, let's take a look at what is supposed to be our pending ice fishing. There's a little bit of ice on Lake Gogebic and some of the UP lakes, but it's unsafe as of this week. They are getting steelhead around the state and in all the traditional steelhead locations. 4 to 8 pounds seems to be the main link. Some crappie and Fletcher floodwaters are getting 3 to 4 walleye per angler in Houghton Lake. Other than that, not a whole lot of fishing going on. Everybody's waiting for that ice. I tell you what, as long as the weather's good, get outdoors if you can. It's a great place to be. See you next week.